Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain you about the implementation of page object model and page factory in Selenium. So we all know using Selenium, we can do web automation. We usually open the driver, which means our browser, and we will be capturing all the web elements that we will be interacting with. Then we'll do the respective actions on the web elements. But in a large scale, there might be a website with hundreds of pages, and every page will have more than 10 web elements. So in total, there will be more than thousands of web elements to handle n number of test cases. So there should be a design pattern which will be very much helpful and can easily handle the web elements. So for that, we are going to quickly learn about what is page object model and page factory and how we can implement in our Selenium project. So what is page object model? If you see page object model, sometimes it's called as POM, but we should not confuse this with our pom.xml, which is project object model. So page object model is a design pattern in Selenium that creates an object repository for storing all the web elements. So we are going to have a logical separation between the different web pages, and we'll be storing the elements of different pages in respective class file. So it's very useful in reducing the code duplication and improve the test case maintenance. So while implementing, maybe we will understand how it is helping. So as I told, in this page object model, if you're having a application with n number of web pages, we'll be considering each web page as a individual class file, I mean a Java file. Then what are the elements we are going to interact in that specific web page? We will be declaring that as a variable. So there are two different types of declaration. So one is under page object model and another one will be under page factory. We'll see about that. So using these elements, the testers can easily perform the operations on the specific page, which means we are having a logical separation between the pages as a class, and every elements in the page will be declared in the respective class. So it is very easy to identify where the specific element is declared. Rather, we are having everything in a single page. So there are some advantages of having this design pattern implemented. It's easy to maintain, and we can have a reusability because we are declaring the element once and we can use that element in n number of test cases. And it's helping us to have the high readability and reliability of the scripts, which means, example, when we have the elements declared in the top, we don't need to search for the element anywhere in our code. It will be declared in the top of the every page, and mostly will be declared in the alphabetical order. So we can quickly find out the specific element, and it's easy to readable as well. So first let's try to understand how we are doing the scripting. So I have taken a sample website, which is OASP Juice Shop website. It's a test website for practice. So there is a registration screen in the website. So I'm opening a Chrome driver here, and I'm going to enter all the details to register a new user in that website. It's a testing website. So I defined the implicit wait of 5 seconds. Then I'm launching the URL and performing various action in that website. So till now, this is the raw Selenium code. This is how we will be finding out an element by hard coding the properties of different web elements, and will be performing different actions. Sometimes the test data may change, but the properties will never change. But we all having the properties written as a raw Selenium code here. Let me first execute this code and we'll show you what this code is doing. Then we will try to convert this into our page object model followed by page factory. So I'll quickly run this test case. It usually launch a web browser and launch that test application registration page and entering all the details. So it's launching and it will be quickly entering all the details like email ID, password, security question answer, all those things. I'm not clicking the register button here, but if we click the register button, we'll be getting the success message. So it's performing around 6, 7 operations on different web elements. So this code is working fine here. Now I'm going to tell you how to convert this code into page object model. So page object model is a design pattern where we will be declaring the web element properties as a variable. So as I told here, there are 7 different web elements declared here. If you see, these all 7 different actions are being done on different web elements. So I'm going to declare all the web element properties. So how we usually declare the properties? By ID or by name or by export, whatever it is. So in page object model, every variable is called by variable. By is a type of a variable where we are going to store the property of a web element. So the first element is dismiss button. So let me write like this, dismiss button. And what I'm going to store the property of the dismiss button by XPath. So I'm going to cut this value and put it here because I'm going to declare that as a variable called dismiss button, and I'll be directly using this variable name here instead of directly hard coding the property, something like this. This is how I'm going to do it for all the other variables. Say for an example, the next variable is email ID equal to by dot, it's going to be ID by ID. The ID value is email control. Similarly, what we have, then there are 2 different types of password text boxes. One is password text, another one is confirm password. So both are having the property called ID. So I'll be declaring that by dot ID for password, it will be password control. And for confirm password, it will be repeat password control by dot ID. So I'm just converting all the hardcoded properties into variables. And further, I will be removing the hard-coded properties and replacing that with the respective variables. So I'm replacing the email ID, password text, and the confirm password text box. Similarly, I'll replace the other 3 elements as well, which are one for security question box. So security question box, it's a span, and first we need to click the text box so that all the security questions will be displayed. After that, we will be selecting the respective question as per the test case. So the question value, maybe we can pass as a span text here. So I'll pass it security question. That again I'm having as a X path. So it's a very simple that instead of having the property hard coded in my test script, I'm having that as a variable and declaring that as a global variable in the top. We will be calling this as a class level variable, right? So that's how it is. And finally, there is a security question answer as well. So security question answer equal to by dot id. This is the id. I'll cut and paste it here. So now I declared all the different element properties as a variable in the top, and I'm replacing all the by dot xpath with the respect to variable as well. So now it is bit understandable that what action I am doing. So I think question box, then we have to select the security question. Then I am selecting the security question answer. So my script currently now it's a bit understandable that what action I'm doing. I'm first clicking the dismiss button, then entering the email ID, password, and confirm password. So this way of implementation is called page object model. So now, for this test case, if I execute this will work. Similarly, maybe I have around 3 or 4 test cases which are using the similar web elements. So in that case, every time I don't need to find out the properties of the web element and I have to use it in my test script. So rather, I can declare it once and I can reuse it in the respective test scripts. Let me quickly execute this test case. So the expectation here, this should exactly perform the similar action like it was doing earlier. I think currently it's experiencing some application error. Let me try this. All right. I think application is down because this is a test application and it's usually for security application testing. So they will be performing some denial of service attack. So it will be up in some time. So in the meantime, I'll be explaining you how to implement page factory. Maybe we will execute this test case later. So this is the example for page object model. Now, what is page factory then? Page factory is the implementation of page object model. So page object model is a design pattern and page factory is an implementation of the page object model. So what is the difference if you ask me? In the page object model, we are defining the properties of the web elements as a variables. But in the page factory, we will be defining web element itself as a variable. So let me create the Java class juice shop underscore register underscore page factory. So I'm creating an empty Java class. And let me have the similar code pasted here. And I will make you understand how to convert this into page factory. Actually, this is not a conversion, but I will try to make you understand the difference between the page object model and page factory. So now if you see here, these are all properties of the web elements. 7 elements are defined by their properties. Instead of defining this as a property, I'm going to define this as a web element. So how it is going to be? We have different annotation in the Selenium for finding the web element. So first annotation is @find by. The other annotations find by is there, find distinct, find all, and there are other annotations as well. So find by is equivalent to driver dot find element. So now I'm going to find the element which is my dismiss button by XPath. So if I pass the XPath here, I mean this XPath for the dismiss button, this will be returning me a web element, which is my dismiss button. So this is how I will be converting a property into a web element declared as a variable. So this is a duplicate variable, so it's giving an error. So I declared the dismiss button as a web element here. Similarly, I can copy paste this and I can put this for other elements as well. So next element is email ID. So I'll put the email ID here and the ID value here. Similarly, the ID value for password also. Sorry, this is for password, I think. And this is for email ID. I'm just converting the properties into web elements. So password text. I converted these two. Similarly, I can convert the other elements as well. But if you see what is the difference, now you might have a question like, hey, this is a single element. So you are using the find by option and you're finding the element using any of the given properties like ID or XPath or whatever. Then you are storing it in a web element, correct? Suppose if you are using driver dot find elements, find elements means multiple elements, right? So that time it's very simple. We just need to change the find by annotation to find bys. There is a plural annotation as well. And that find bys annotation will be returning a list of web element instead of a individual element. So to complete it quickly, let me copy paste this. So next element is security question box, which is web element using the XPath. This is the value of the XPath. So I'll be pasting it here and F capital letter and B capital letter because it is a annotation. I'll copy paste this. The next element will be the actual security question. And this is having its own XPath. In the XPath, the reason why I'm passing the security question. So it might be an input or the user input. That time I will have to pass this as a part of my dynamic XPath so that it is easy for me to frame the text inside the XPath and I can select the respective question. Because if we hard code the specific position of the question, first question, second question, something like that, then sometimes the arrangement will be varying. So if we pass the exact question inside, then we can easily select the question by passing that as an input. So now if you see here, I converted all the properties of the element into a web element, variable. And now the action is very, very simple. So as I told, this find by is equal to the driver dot find element. So I can simply remove all the driver dot find element as well as the bracket, whatever the bracket I have. So because we are already having the web element, I don't need to again find it using any of the property. And whatever the action we want to do, we can directly perform on the declared web element. But now if you see here, we need a web driver to initialize all these web elements. Just that we are declaring that as a variable is not mean that it will be auto initialized. Let me try to see whether the application is now working or not. If it is working, we can test it. If it is not working, I'll continue explaining. I think it's not working. All right. So now if you see here, all the actions, whatever I want, I can directly perform on the web element. But here, we have to maintain a connectivity between the web element. So how it works, whenever this page comes, the specific page comes, all the variables here will be auto initialized. We will be calling that as a lazy initialization. But all variables will be initialized as a null value. So once all the element is available in the web page, I have to reinitialize the element. So this method is called page factory here. So there is a method available, page factory, to initialize the elements, which is nothing but page factory dot init elements. So here what we will be doing, we will be passing the two parameters. One is the list of elements, which are all the variables. Another one will be driver. So I am passing the driver as well as list of elements. I am just marking it as this. We all know what is this means. This denotes individual variables that are declared in the class level. So if I just add this one line, this is very important. This line is to reinitialize the web elements. So this line should come once we ensure all the elements are displayed in the web page. So now this code will work as usual, because few minutes back I was showing the web application. It was entering all the details. Now suddenly it's showing like, let me retry. It's showing application error. All right, no problem. Showing some logs as well. But this is how we are doing this method of initiating the web element itself as a variable. This is called a page factory. And the way if we define only the properties of the web element, this is called page object model. The only difference here, what we are seeing between page object model and page factory is, here we are reinitializing the elements with the driver once we ensure the element is displaying in the application using a method called page factory.init element. So already by default, whenever the class is loaded, all elements will be initialized, but mostly it will be with null value. So this line is very important here. But other than that, the code, actual code will looks very simple, because we are directly performing the core actions like click, send keys on the web element object itself. Sorry, not object, variable itself. But here we are just utilizing the, if you see here, we are just utilizing the property and we are finding the element at every line. Then we are performing the action. So this is the major difference between page object model and page factory. And in almost all the projects, they will be following either of this method. Sometimes they'll be defining the properties and they'll be using it. Sometimes they'll be declaring that as a web element and they will be using it. But in the real-time projects, they will be using either page object model or the page factory. And if you see the other difference here, so yeah, we are using by variable type in the page object model, and we are using @find by. It's not just @find by. We can use @find bys or the other annotations as well. Page object model does not provide any lazy initialization, because it's not even initializing the web element. It's just declaring the properties. But page factory, First, it will be initializing all the web element as null, which is called a lazy initialization. Post that whenever we are calling that page factory dot init elements method, it will be actually initializing the element. So page object model is a design pattern. Page factory is a implementation of page object model. This is the major difference. And in page object model, we need to initialize every object individually. Like here we were seeing, no, every object we are initializing using driver.find element, but here it's not the case. Using a single method, we will be initializing all the objects. So I hope this will give you a quick overview of what is page object model and page factory. Let me once again try whether application is working or not. If it is working, I can execute and show you. I think it's not working. No problem. So you please try this code. It will work. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. And thank you all for watching this video. Bye.